Welcome back, everyone, to episode 44 of the Minot Business Podcast, presented by Bennett Creative Media. I'm your host, Easton Bennett, and on the show today, we have Melinda Goodman. Melinda, how are you?
I'm great. It's apparently April 4th, and we have a blizzard warning.
Yep.
No snow yet, but hey,
it's
North Dakota.
Trying to avoid it. I'm just not going to look out the window. I'm just going to close my curtains, and then we'll be good to go.
There you go. That works.
Before we get into the questions, if you have not already, please rate and review the show. I'm not selling you anything. All I ask is for your support, so you could take 5 seconds to leave us a rating and review. Really helps spread the word to new audiences and attract new guests for you guys every single week. All right, let's get into the questions here. So, Melinda, for people that don't know you, don't know what you do, what do you do? What's your elevator pitch?
Well, I'm Melinda Goodman. I grew up on a ranch in North Dakota, just north of Towner. And I was the girl that said, I'm going to end up in ag. Didn't know what that looked like, but sure enough, I did. So almost 30 some years later, for the last 11 years, I've had my own marketing agency that specializes in fresh food and agriculture. A little bit of everything, but that's definitely my niche.
Okay. So how did you pivot from thinking you were going to be an ag on a ranch your whole life to now, okay, let's go into this marketing world?
Well, funny thing is, I knew I was not going to be on the ranch. My mom and dad were very clear. Go to school, get an education so you don't have to come home and work this hard.
Okay.
Yay. Oh, now I'm an entrepreneur, by the way. I work all of that hard and then some. Vacations still aren't always a thing. However, I've been fortunate enough to have some really cool jobs along the way where I've worked with in the agency space, for commodity boards, for other businesses. Met a lot of great people all over the United States, Canada, Mexico, introduced me to a lot of opportunities. I even worked for Disney at one point, which was super cool.
Okay.
And at one point it was like, if I'm going to work this hard for someone else, I might as well work that hard for myself. So you just take the leap, you put in your resignation one day, and you hope people will come.
Okay, so we're gonna get into kind of going all over the country and even into other countries a little bit down the road. But I want to talk about, so did you go to school for marketing then? Your parents obviously pushed you that direction. You went to school. What did it look like after you went to school for marketing? And why did you decide marketing? Could you have went to school for anything?
Yeah, no, I actually didn't even go to school for marketing.
Oh, really?
No, I have an undergrad in ag education and extension, and I have a master's degree in business and organizational communication.
Okay.
I just knew that ag was my niche. I'm a good communicator. It would have some space in there. I didn't know how, but some. And all my jobs had a little bit of that: marketing, communication, sales, business development. Recognized I just kind of had a natural gift for it. Okay.
So it didn't originally start in Minot, right?
It did not. No.
So what was the startup? So what's that startup story?
So I was actually in the Milwaukee metro area living at the time. I'd been working for another boutique agency. I was home officing long before this pandemic thing happened. So I've actually home officed for almost 17 years.
Okay.
And I'd been working for a wholesaler at the time. The agency that I ended up going to work for called, and he was looking for essentially employee number one in his agency, which was a boutique agency that specialized in fresh produce. Worked for him for 6 years, learned a lot of cool things, asked for my opportunity to do more and more and more. And he said, I just think you're really good in doing what you're doing. And so one day I just made the decision, like, I can see this is the ceiling. And if I want to go beyond that, it'll have to be my own thing. So it's just pretty much you decide you quit one day and then you put out your own shingle on your own house.
Yeah. So what did that, when you did finally put in your resignation, you're trying to get that first client. What was it like? What were your emotions like? Were you nervous? Were you scared, confident? What was that like?
So it was both. I had been fortunate just a few months earlier. Someone in my network had come to me and had asked, like, hey, would you be open, to doing some work for us? And I said, well, if it's, the size of your business doesn't really match with my current, with the current agency I was working in. And then when I had this idea that I was going to quit, it's like, I should call them back and see if they still need a little help.
Like,
and
hey.
And I did. That was kind of the conversation. It was like, hey, I'm going to do my own thing. Do you still want some help? And they were like, yeah. It's like, would you be employed or would you be client number one? And they were like, sure. So it was like, I took the leap knowing that I had a little bit of a safety net there of having one client. But I also joke that if anybody had come to me in that first year and said, what do? Do you change tires? I would have said yes, because you're willing to do anything to pay the bills in that year 1 or 2.
I think you have to be a yes man in the beginning, because I remember in the beginning, video work, I would film anything, weddings, commercials, documentaries, whatever it could, anything I could get my hands on. Like, are you going to pay me for it? That sounds great. I'll do it tomorrow.
Yes.
But you've now niched down. What do you think the importance of that is after in the beginning, maybe you were a little bit more open to different industries and aspects? What do you think the importance of niching down is?
So it's both a blessing and a curse in some ways. Like you have to know how to build your niche. So a little bit of my niche was strategy and business development in some ways in the food and agriculture, particularly fresh produce space. That niche really gives you a couple things. It gives you an existing network in some cases. So who are the people you know? It's easiest to get business from people you know than knocking down a stranger's door and saying, "Hi, I'd like to sell you my stuff," whatever that might be.
Fruit per se, right?
Absolutely, the low-hanging fruit. The other type can kind of get you a little pigeonholed sometimes. So it took a little bit to figure out how to build that niche, which really 11 years later, I'm really starting to figure some of that out. I'm moving past fresh produce. We've moved into other agriculture industries. So some in animal ag, some in ag banking, some in specialty food, and all of it translates in exactly the same way. But that we also have other clients just plainly in marketing. As your book of work, just like yours, the more video you did, the better you got, the more you improved at voiceover or effects or post-production.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden more people see it and say, "Oh, that's really great. I would like to use that for my stuff as well." So it's kind of building that network of skills and portfolio.
So if we're going to give some actionable advice for someone that's maybe starting off on their own, doesn't have to be marketing specific, but what would be your advice to getting those first few clients? How do you get that portfolio started?
Yeah, I think the first thing is have a really good network, and just everybody is your network in whatever shape it could be your high school classmate's mom. They're your network, right? Yeah. Like your dad is your network. Your next door neighbor is your network. Every person you meet, never burn it down. Like you might not like somebody, right? You might have had a bad experience. You don't know where they're going to be next. You don't know where you might need them. So first and foremost, your whole career, whatever length that is, just manage that network of relationships because you're going to need those people for lots of different things. It could be you decide one day, "Hey, I need an accountant that's going to help me do my taxes." Yeah. And you have somebody to call. But it's also just how are you going to grow your business?
So then going into the network side a little bit then, how do you build a network? How can people start? Because I know when I started, I didn't know anybody. This podcast, honestly, an extension of me trying to meet new people. And I'm very open about that. And there was different ways I was like, I need to meet these business professionals. So how do you think people can start getting these networks built if they're maybe they just graduated college or just starting their business or whatever it might be?
Yeah, networking isn't easy. I mean, there's extroverts, there's introverts. There's the person who's going to walk up and say hi to everybody, no matter what. They're just sort of naturally gifted at meeting people, being a rainmaker. There are other people that it's a lot harder. It feels less comfortable. I think it's getting involved. It does, figure out, where are the places that you might want to be on a committee. It could be joining the chamber. It could be just going to some actions. If there are specific organizations that represent your business or your industry, get involved in them, go to them, say yes to things. I think that's the biggest thing somewhere along the line, even at the beginning when we just said, "Do you change tires?" Yes. Yeah. Yes, I do. I don't, but I will.
Yeah.
I think there's so much, even figuring out how to break out and grow your business, being willing to say yes to things. Like, you don't know how to do everything, but if you're quick to say no, of course you're not going to learn that skill either. Yeah. So saying yes. I was actually just at a service club meeting through Rotary yesterday, and the speaker brought in by Town and Country was super amazing. And he gave this great tip. He said, "Go into every conversation assuming the person likes you."
Okay. I like that.
If we don't walk in believing this person might not like me, of course we're setting ourselves up that we're not worthy of this interaction. But if you just go in being like, this person's going to love me.
Yeah. And then pretend like you've been friends for years. And I think it came for me when there was a mindset shift that you can't pigeonhole certain situations or meeting different people. It's like, I'm going to go here and it's going to be awkward and nobody's going to know me. Just go in there thinking, it's going to be great. And just like that, I already know this person, where that's where you create this self-doubt in your mind before things already begin. And that's really what hinders people, I think.
Absolutely, it does.
So pivoting a little bit into your clients now, you said you work with clients all over the nation. What is your approach to working with clients over, a lot of business are just local to Minot. How do you look at working with clients all over the country and other countries as well?
Yeah. So again, it goes back to network, right? Like, what are the things that we know? Again, who do people refer you to based on people in their networks? And next thing you know, it's like, oh, I'm not just in North Dakota. I'm not just in North Carolina. Oh, by the way, now I'm in Colombia. Yes, Colombia, the country.
Yeah.
And it's almost always because somebody knows somebody who's referred you or put you in somebody's network. So the process is really the same everywhere, going into the conversation and truly being interested in people and just being ready to ask, how can I help? What do you need?
What are your thoughts on going into conversations actually? Because I used to do this. I'd go into the conversation thinking, what can I get out of this? Instead of just listening and thinking, I'm actually interested in what this person is doing. Do you think that helps build these business relationships?
Absolutely. You can never get anything out of something until you figured out like what they need. And and if you're only figuring in the moment, what can I get? It's never going to be a long-term relationship because you're just filling an immediate need.
Yeah.
But if you start a conversation, there are sometimes I meet people, they tell me what they potentially need. I might cultivate that relationship for 6 months, a year, 2 years, multiple years before that need for them even comes full circle. And
that's when you're like, okay, now I can capitalize on this. Not capitalize. That sounds like.
But it takes time to build a relationship. Where do we go in and have great experiences? We have great experiences when we have great relationships because somebody heard us, because somebody was ready to really help and understand us.
Have you heard the premise, sell like a doctor?
I have not heard.
So selling like a doctor, and that's the one thing I was always afraid of sales, of asking people what they needed, because people would come to me and they'd say, hey, I want this video. And I'd be like, awesome. Here's what it costs. Let's do it. Where now, because if you compare it to going to a doctor, if you go to a doctor, if you say, man, my head hurts, they say, awesome, here's your thing. They leave. They don't do that, right? So I think if you pivot a little bit, if you go to the doctor, they ask you 1,000 questions until they actually give you something. So now if you go in, let's say I'm selling a video and I say, hey, we want this video. And I say, okay, well, why? What are you going to do with the video? How does that help you? Where does that get you to? And start to actually sell like a doctor compared to just being a yes man, which that's good. We talked about at the start. But when you pivot that mindset into, it goes back to caring about what their actual goals are. Because I think if you hit their goals, your goals are also going to be hit on the back end as well.
No, that's super important because a lot of people come to you and they have an idea of what they need, but they don't
think they know what they need.
They don't exactly know what they need. Yeah. And obviously if they could do that, they would have already done it. So they need a professional to help them get to the answer. We just finished a project like this for a client. I'd had multiple calls with him and it was a client within a client. So our client said, here, can you connect with this customer of ours, help them get something they need? So the client was kind of out of the day-to-day interactions, letting me work with their customer. I had a list. I created it. We handed it over to him. And he's like, this is amazing. He's like, it is nothing like I expected, but I didn't know what I wanted. Yeah. Like, it was like, he thought he knew what he wanted until he saw what he needed. Yeah. But it was because I just sat there and asked lots of questions.
And if you don't dive into it, you'll never know.
No. And if I would have just taken the surface level of what he asked for, we wouldn't have probably met that need at all.
And I believe that people are worried to do this because they feel like they're asking too much. They're being overbearing. But if you go into it knowing like this is only going to provide value, that's when you start to change that mindset a little bit. So you have clients obviously all over the country and other countries as well. How do you manage the communication with that? I don't have a ton of clients outside of Minot. I have a few obviously, but what is the communication like there? Is it any different? It's
no different. So, I mean, the world has changed over the last, not just the last few years, but over the last 10 or 15 years. I mean, we could not have imagined going a lot of places, and meeting the amount of people that we did. And then as email evolved, as video conference evolved, and now obviously because of the last couple of years, it's just not even unheard of to be, in all kinds of video conferences on a regular basis. We joke some days, like, can't we just get on the phone? Like, we don't really need to be on a video conference, right? But yeah, we're on the phone. Some clients we never meet in person. Some of the clients, 100% of what we do is over phone, video, and email. And, and then there are other clients that, once a quarter or twice a year, we're flying and we're on site meeting them and setting up strategic planning. So it just all depends.
It is crazy how it's changed ever since COVID happened with the video conferencing, because I've cut out so many in-person meetings that I wouldn't need to have, just, hop on a call or a quick Zoom call where we can discuss something instead of traveling there, driving to the office, sitting down, doing small talk. Hey, you want a coffee? Leaving. Whereas you can do the Zoom call and now it's done in 10 minutes.
Yeah. And there's never a place where a personal relationship isn't important or that it isn't great to have that. But we're also a really fast-paced world, and we can sometimes burn up a lot of time just sitting, almost feeling an obligation to make a certain amount of small talk before we can do business.
Yeah. And that's where I've tried to, I'm a big small talker. I don't know why, but and part of it goes to, I actually want to know what's going on with you and your business and your life and that kind of stuff. But sometimes I get carried away and it's like, okay, let's actually talk about
That's a Midwest thing.
Yeah. That's Midwest nice. That's or North Dakota nice. Is that what they say?
It is.
So what would you say sets your marketing firm apart from other agencies?
One of the things that we get really high marks for is we spend a lot of time delving into strategy and really understanding sort of and creating the reason why.
Okay.
We'll be the first to say we're maybe not always the most creative agency. We do a lot of really good creative work, but some agencies are really about just like, how can I make this really great creative thing that's award winning, but they fail to understand like the big picture. What's the real strategy behind this? And it's actually some of the things sometimes that gives agencies a bad name. Clients will come in, they'll have an agency experience. They pay a lot of money for really amazing creative, but creative that didn't move the needle because you didn't spend time talking about the underlying strategy of what needed to be accomplished.
Because at the end of the day, and I've had to tell myself this too, because when I'd go into video meetings, I'd be like, oh, we're going to have this cool shot and this is the camera we're going to shoot it on. Clients don't care about that.
No.
They want to get from point A to point B. Can you get them to the results? That's really what they don't care how you get there. Train, plane, boat, automobile, whatever it takes to get from A to B. That's really what they care about.
Yeah. I walk into every meeting under the idea of what's the return on investment? If a client is going to pay me, they have to get back out of what they paid me something of some multiplier after that of whatever their goal was, whether they were getting likes, whether they were getting new customers, driving people to whatever it was, whatever they set up as their metric of what they needed to achieve, I have to help them hit that. And when I do, that further solidifies my long-term relationship with them.
Yeah. And I always look at it when I go into these meetings. If I said, you pay me $10,000 and I can promise you, you'll get 20 back, no one's ever going to say no to that. Right. Now, it's not always revenue. Like you said, it could be likes or follows or shares or comments or whatever it is. But if you focus on the actual client results, that's when you become a rainmaker, like you said. Have you read the book, How to Become a Rainmaker?
Yes.
It is a good book. I've read it and listened to it. So staying on the topic of measuring success, how do you do that? Do you go in with a client KPI, you figure out what they're really trying to achieve, or how do you measure success?
Again, different for every client. Some of them come to us with a very specific objective of what they're trying to get, whether it's new customers. Some of it, they come and they're looking for growing brand awareness, and we might have a PR strategy running for them that establishes that. Others, it might be a social media goal that they're trying to hit. It just depends. But yeah, every client has some kind of KPIs that we set up at the beginning, because everybody should, if they're in marketing, be tracking some of those outcomes to know, what lever do you pull next? If one isn't working, like, we have to either make a change or do something else.
That's something internally I had to make the switch, because I would be like, here's this cool video, looks pretty. And I didn't know what it did for them. Right. So I'm like, I hand it over. I don't see them for however long. But if you figure out their KPI, what that, for those of people who don't know, key performance indicator, the mark of what we're trying to hit, that's when it's like, okay, I don't care how the video looks as long as we're hitting this goal, whether it's, more followers, likes, revenue, whatever it is. So you have a team obviously that you work with. What's the importance of having that team? How do they help you on your day to day?
So everybody has a different skill set. Everybody brings a key strength to the table that is not my own in many cases. You're a little bit of a one-man show. Like you probably have some contractors you rely on here and there, but sometimes you are responsible for all of the things every day. And when I started out, it was just me. And then it was just me and a couple of contractors part-time. And then it was just me on the first hire. And now here we are 6 employees later. And, some of them are great relationship people. Some of them are great social media people. Some of them are great creatives. Some of them are great copywriters.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about, is figuring out how to really maximize everybody's strengths. And especially as the business grows, my job then is to determine more of the strategy, more of the culture, more of the opportunity to, help clients derive some of their big picture goals.
So all of these people, obviously you said you work from home.
Yep.
And the world is almost moving in that direction, whether it's, hybrid where a couple of people are going to the office a couple of days a week. Your whole team is remote, I assume.
Yes.
Talk to me about that a little bit. What is that? How can you squash that narrative of everybody needs to be in the office all the time?
So like I said, I have worked remotely for 17 years. I travel a lot from work. I'll be the first to say, not everybody is suited for home officing. Some people, aren't self-starters. They're just not good at staying organized without kind of having some kind of habit. And sometimes that habit is just simply getting up and going to an office and having the home environment removed from sort of their daily focus. Other people, whether they're introverted or extroverted, either or, it can be dangerous for them to be at home without an office environment, because either number one, as an extrovert, they could be like just feel too isolated being alone. And then vice versa, an introvert could become more introverted by just lacking that outside interaction. So I've had employees over the years who weren't a good fit for home officing. For me, I'm really super focused. I travel a lot for work, no less than one time or 2 times a month. So I get a lot of outside interaction. I'm on the phone all the time. But I think it's just finding the right mix of people. We meet in person at least once, if not twice a year for staff meetings. Plus, when we're traveling, at least 1 or 2 or more of us are all together at the same time. There were just 4 of 6 of us together at a trade show this past weekend.
And that's what's cool to see, because I like where the world is going with remote workers, especially. I think there can be a lot of work that's done in offices that's maybe not needed. Like it's just tedious work. That's like, oh, I got to get my 8 hours and I'm not really working. You're there for 8 hours, but you might work 3 hours. Where when people have a little bit more flexibility, I think things can really be accomplished. Before we get into some more questions, we're going to hear from this week's sponsor, Midco. Is your business moving up and to the right? Put Midco's business technology to work for you, so you never have a slow day at the office. From premium internet and phone plans to custom private networking and advertising, they have a solution for every type of business, large or small. Get paired with an account representative to create your suite of services and make the switch with ease with dedicated business client fulfillment and support teams. No data caps, flexible contracts with month-to-month or long-term options, built-in DDoS protection, and more. Explore services and request a free consultation at midco.com/business today. I've been a Midco user ever since I started my business, ever since I bought my house, my home studio, and I've had no issues with Midco. So if you want to check out some of their services, midco.com/business. All right, let's get back into the questions, Melinda. So how do you manage your workload and prioritize tasks as a business owner, especially working from home?
I don't manage my workload well. I think that's the number one challenge of being an entrepreneur, right? You feel a lot of responsibility for every single client that comes in the door, for every employee, for every success that happens. I tend to be by nature a workaholic, so I probably take on and don't delegate as well as I should. But yeah, no, I'm super hyper focused. So I'm always, there's to-do lists that happen every day, all day long. And, we're just scratching things off the list. We run various project management software. We're just trying to stay organized because marketing moves fast and the priorities change.
So talking about that a little bit then, what kind of person do you think you need to be a business owner? Because a lot of that goes around the business world as a workaholic. You got to work all the time. And yeah, that's true. You should be, focused and dedicated, but what kind of personalities do you think you see in most entrepreneurs and business owners?
I think there's a place for every type of personality. I think if you are passionate about something, it doesn't matter if you're introverted, extroverted. It doesn't matter if you're somebody looking for more of a work-life balance, because there is no one right path to entrepreneurship. There's a person that is passionate about something they are making a choice for, whatever that might be. They love it, or they are just looking for something that gives them a different life than they're in at the moment.
So I want to pivot a little bit now into some projects you've done. Well, maybe if you have one specific project for me, can you talk about the most rewarding project that you've worked on? Is there anything that you're really proud of that you're like, oh, this is my favorite thing we've done?
Wow. I mean, it probably changes from week to week and month to month. Gosh, I don't even know that there's one, it's like picking your favorite kid, right?
Yeah.
Can you pick your favorite kid?
Or maybe an area of where you one specific thing you like to do more than the other. Like one thing that's like, we love doing strategy. Or, I really like being on video sets. Or I really like when we're meeting with new clients.
It's all of them. Seriously. Yeah. No, looking back in my career, I have the moments of saying, it wasn't at this agency, but if you look back over the whole and say, man, the day that, we got Disney Business and we got to work with Disney and I got to go to a premiere of Toy Story 2 was really pretty cool. Those are things you don't expect. But at the same time, getting your first client, every time I get a new client, I'm excited. It doesn't matter how big or small they are. It's like, oh yeah, this is exciting. We get to work on a new client.
Yeah.
I think there are moments for me. I love strategy. I love helping clients. I just love being interested in what clients need and seeing that thing that they're having trouble seeing. It was fun recently. So we're a preferred vendor for the state of North Dakota for marketing.
Okay.
And we're part of their marketing pool. It was super fun to get my first work with the North Dakota Department of Ag on an animal ag project. That's when you and I met and got to do some video for that.
Which is fun.
That felt like a little bit of a full circle moment. I've worked in ag all over the United States. It's, I've worked on animal ag before too, but that was in North Carolina with chickens. So getting to come back and work right here in North Dakota on animal ag, relating right back to the place I grew up, felt a little full circle.
So I want to talk a little bit about the Disney project. What was that? What did you guys do for Disney? Are you allowed to?
Yeah, no, we're totally allowed to talk about. So Disney obviously does a lot of licensing. You can go into the store at any point in time and find the Disney brand on, it could be on graham crackers, it could be on clothing, it could be on toys. Disney was in the midst of a major shift of figuring out how to move away from unhealthy products to shifting to healthier food products in their portfolio. And they recognized that the one way that they could do that, and they could do that very fast, was putting fresh produce in their portfolio, and they could add a lot of items. So the agency I was working for at the time, we basically helped them develop a Disney brand for fresh produce and bring licensees into the Disney program. So we developed over 400 packages over the course of a 4 or 5 year period of time and launched a line of Disney fresh produce all over the United States.
And did that just stem from the network, like you said earlier, or did the person that was running the agency just somehow, how did that happen?
It completely stemmed from a network experience. So my boss had previously been a produce buyer at Target. When he left Target, he went to work for Green Giant and was helping Green Giant license fresh produce in the Green Giant brand. And next thing you know, when he started his own agency, Disney found him. He needed employee number one and knew my branding and marketing experience based on my work with him at Target through other clients. So it's kind of like, don't ever burn these bridges. Somewhere along the line, people kind of find you in cool ways.
You never know where work is going to come from. That's what's exciting.
Yeah.
And that's why I always like to new clients I have. I'm like, how did you find us? Where did you hear about us? Did you get a referral? Was it from Google, Instagram? What did you see? So it's always interesting to see where those clients come from. How do you keep your team, pivoting a little bit, how do you keep your team inspired to produce this high quality work? Because I assume you're in this leadership role. How do you keep the team going on a day-to-day basis?
So I'm kind of, I always joke and say I'm kind of like the big brain. Everything in the world interests me. I'm not looking and thinking about ag at any given time. Like I love a little bit of everything. Like I love fashion. I love pop culture. I love news. I love ag. I love food. And we do a couple different things. So I'm randomly always, first thing between 5 and 6 in the morning, I'm reading headlines. I'm picking up all of the things across tons of news platforms. I randomly pick things up and then I kind of challenge the team. I'll send it out with like my assessment of something. And I'll be like, what do you guys think? And then every other week or so, I'll pick a topic and then we'll sit and talk about it strategically. Or I'll also say like, okay, it's like pick Melinda's brain today. What topic do you want to know about? Yeah. And then we randomly just get on a call and then I have to ask like, thank you for coming to my TED Talk today. Okay.
Like, I appreciate you guys. I needed this hour or 5.
Yeah.
So how are you staying up to date with new marketing trends and things that are going on in the marketing world then? Is it just articles and?
So it's the same thing. Yeah. We certainly do conferences. We're in trend newsletters. We follow trend newsletters and content, particularly from Europe. Like it seems like Europe's super far ahead of us on a lot of cool content and trends. And we're just kind of always, and we ask other people on the team to become experts in different stuff. Like, oh my gosh, you can't like read and consume all of the things. So some of it is like, okay, you're maybe the consumer trend specialist. You're maybe the video specialist. You're the social media specialist.
Okay. So then you're not having to do it all.
No, like I want everybody sort of broadly versed, but at the same time, we'll be on something new and it'll be like, okay, you're in charge of going and sort of staying on top of this and then come back and like give us all a condensed version of this.
Okay.
Like right now, the challenge is nobody really wants to get into talking about AI and how ChatGPT and everything else is going to help us. It's kind of like, I don't know if I want that to be my thing.
Yeah. It's funny because I actually had, when you guys are seeing this, it'll be last week, but today I had someone from the news came and interviewed me about how I'm using ChatGPT in my business. And people are worried like, oh my gosh, it's going to take people's jobs. It's like, okay, yeah, it might, but I'm going to use it until it does. So it's very polarizing.
Oh, it's absolutely polarizing. And I think anytime we don't understand something, right, it seems scary and very Orwellian of like what's going to happen next.
Yeah. And that's the funny thing about this. I'll say to the people listening to the podcast, all of these questions came from ChatGPT. Do you know that?
Ooh.
Every single one. Obviously, I read through them to make sure
you will not have a job 6 years from now. No,
exactly. Well,
but ChatGPT is not going to be able to run a video camera on location.
Exactly.
Somewhere.
And that's where I'm saying my job is safe. Otherwise, I can be a sandwich artist. Subway.
There you go.
I think that's what they call their sandwich makers. But yeah, I mean, it saves so much time, and that's going off on a tangent a little bit on ChatGPT. But you type in, generate 30 questions, and I put in generate 30 questions or creative podcast questions for a business owner that runs a marketing firm that started it in Milwaukee and moved to North Dakota.
So I think this is the key that everybody really needs to understand about every tool. If we would have looked back, so email was barely a thing, when I was in college, we had sort of early versions. I mean, my first computer was a blue screen DOS where I had to type in a code to turn it on and make it do something. I'm sure at the time, nobody envisioned what a computer would end up doing for us, not to mention the fact that, there's, more in our handheld phone at this point than anything else. But that's the point. There are these amazing tools that help us do more with less time, and everybody's got less time. So
and that's what it is, saving time.
Yeah. Instead of looking at technology or new apps or assets of like, well, how's this going to ruin my life? Or how is this going to take something away from me? How does it give something back to me?
Yeah.
And as business owners, that's the key. We all need more time because there's not enough hours in the day.
Yeah. And that's where, I use it strictly as a time saver, and even if it's idea generating, if I say, give me 5 commercial ideas for a car company, it'll give me 5 that I can run with instead of sitting there and, hitting the pencil against my head, thinking of 5 different things. But yeah, if you can utilize these tools and change your mindset from this can help me to, oh my gosh, how's this going to ruin my life?
Yeah.
That's really when the opportunities start to open up a little bit.
Yes.
Are you a big data person? Like, do you like to look at numbers and analysis?
I do. I use both. So,
Okay.
I believe in marketing a little bit as a gut instinct. Like I think there's really good marketing that just comes from being instinctual, but I don't think everybody should operate in a vacuum of like just operating on pure instinct. There's amazing data out there that tells great stories, and we can use data to do far better informed selling, whether it's like, where's our audience? What are they doing? How old are they? Where's the opportunity gap? That's really what we use data for, is like finding the opportunity gap.
Because that's one thing I've started to do more, is start to look at the numbers and the analytics to see and start tracking how things are performing. But I think there is a fine line where it's, you don't want to go too deep into the numbers. Otherwise you're going to almost become unhuman. It's like, okay, well, you're not even thinking about emotions and that sort of thing.
No, it's 100% it. We do have some clients who are very metric focused, and sometimes the challenge is really moving them off them because it's all they can think about. And it doesn't allow us a lot of creative space to find that unique sweet spot.
Okay. So I want to pivot a little bit now back into the client side of things. Obviously, you're working with a lot of clients on a day-to-day basis. You have multiple projects going on at one time. How do you simultaneously not let things fall through the cracks, let's say? Yep. Because that's one thing I struggle with in the beginning. And if we're going to give some advice to people listening, how do you manage that and stay on top of things? I assume you use some sort of CRM, but what other advice can you give us there?
So we have, we have a very software that we use to manage the project. So every project goes into basically a task, project list. And that's allowing every staff member to have full visibility to what everybody's working on and looking ahead. Clients have, their own lists that we kind of map out with them and expectations. We stay on the calls. Some clients it's once a week. Some clients it's every other week that we're tracking. We're meeting with them. We're talking about what's changed. We're reprioritizing work if we need to. Each staff member also is kind of the lead on key projects or key clients. So it would be very difficult, right? If I was trying to manage every single project with every single client that we have. But I have full visibility at any given point in time in the day of what's happening with every one of our clients.
Okay. And that's what I always wonder, how people manage those sorts of things. Because before I implemented the actual CRM, I was like, oh my gosh, forgot to email that person. Oh, this document's due by yesterday at 4:00. So it is important to get those things set up in the beginning if you're just starting a business, rather than down the road when you're shooting yourself in the foot. Yeah,
it's figuring out the tools you need to like grow and scale. And scaling sometimes is one of the hardest things, figuring out how there's enough of you to go around as you scale.
When you started your business, financing wise, did you start it pretty lean?
Yeah, I, limited tools, like, money in the bank to basically cover those, first 6 months of like, what can I do as the revenue changes? Living, learning to live without during that period of time. Cause, and what I tell everybody, like, assume you are still hireable.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to go try and fail. Like, lots of business owners fail.
And you can always go back and get another job.
That's just it. Like, you're still hireable. So if you go and you try it and you decide in 6 months or a year, it's not working, you're struggling, or maybe you just decide, you know what, I really don't like it as much as I thought I would.
Yeah.
Go back to work, get another job. You're still hireable. Your skills did not go wrong. So don't be afraid to do it for fear of what might happen. But don't feel like you have to keep doing it too if you decide you don't like it or you don't want to.
It's better to try it and check it off and like, okay, I tried this. Than to get to, when you're 60, 70, 80 years old and be like, I wish I would have tried to start my own business.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with, failing, like you said. Not everybody is built out to be a business owner, I don't think.
It's not. I have had some employees who came to work for me over the years who've said, I think I can be a great entrepreneur. And like, I just think I have some things, I have some things to learn yet. And I want to work for a small business.
Yeah.
And over the course of a year or so working with us, they've also kind of said, you know what? I don't know that this is for me. Like, not even just our agency. Like, they've decided, like, because they worked for a small business, I'm going to go back and work in like big business again. Like, I like that structure. I like that environment. And I don't think I'm suited for being an entrepreneur like I thought I
saw
was.
what you were doing and I'm going to stay far away from that.
Yeah, no, that's like exactly what happens.
Yeah. So do you have any goals then? Only a couple more questions here for you. Do you have any goals for the next 6 to 12 months? Anything you're trying to accomplish?
Goals. I always have goals. It might be the next client. I kind of have taken over the last probably 2 years, I've taken a little bit of a different approach than like structured goals to more of what I'm going to call like big picture mantras that I change from time to time. And some of it is like right now, like healthy and strong. Like that's just every day, multiple times a day, I just say healthy and strong. I want myself to be healthy and strong. I want my relationships to be healthy and strong. I want my business to be healthy and strong. And that's
I like that.
Kind of my mission right now. And I'm at a point that if my business gets bigger, I'm ready for that. And I'm not out fixated on like, I need 1 more client. I need 5 more clients. I need a business that's healthy and strong.
Okay. That's awesome. I like that. And you tell yourself that every day, which is reinforcing.
Yes.
Same sort of question. What would be a dream client of yours? Because I always tell myself, I'm like, I would love to work for like Caesar's Palace. I don't know why, but I love Vegas. I'd love to do something for Caesar's Palace.
Dream client.
That's a good one, huh?
It is. I know. Now I'm thinking like, wow, what's a really cool dream? I mean, I have such good clients that I love.
Yeah.
Man, I don't even know. You have totally stumped me and I'm never at a loss for words. I got to think about that.
That's all right. I'll come back to you. We probably won't get it on the show, but I'm going to text you in about a week. Yeah. When's your next plane trip? I'll let you think on the plane trip.
My next plane trip, definitely end of April, 1st of May. I have to go back to Washington State. And then I'll have the super long one in May going to Columbia for 10 days.
So if you don't have it by May, I'm going to be upset with you. I'm going to delete this podcast off the face of the internet.
Oh, nothing ever goes away off the face of the internet. Once you're there, it lives there forever under even the worst of circumstances.
That's true. That's true. And that's, honestly, that's the first time I've asked that question, but I was curious because I was thinking to myself, I'm like, what would my dream client be? It's like, I don't know if you've been to Absinthe in Vegas, this comedy show. I'm like, I would love, because they have some promo videos and everything on their website. And I'm like, I would love to film that. That would be so fun. So and then I got to thinking, I was like, it'd be cool because it's on Caesar's Palace.
I just know who my dream client is.
You do?
I do.
You going to share it?
Yeah, I'll share it.
All right.
So as exciting as it was to get North Dakota Department of Ag as a client that felt very full circle, I would say in agriculture, another thing that would like really excite me is if someday I was doing marketing for the National FFA Foundation.
Okay.
I'm super passionate about agriculture, but I'm super passionate about education and what are all the ways that we can inspire young people, like their future, right? No matter what it is, how can we give them the skills and tools that they need to excel? I do have a client who has a cause marketing program called Growing America's Farmers. Okay. And a portion of the proceeds of their sales of their products in typically May and June go back to scholarships in the FFA program. So we've been fortunate to help them raise $350,000 for scholarships and grants. But yeah, if I worked with all of the National FFA Foundation, I'd be super excited.
There you go. You're throwing it out into the world. We're manifesting it.
It is. And it's funny that you say that because we had a keynote speaker, Charlie Rocket.
Okay.
He was a CEO, young hip hop CEO in the hip hop industry out of Atlanta. He ended up having a brain tumor. He did some really cool things. Look him up afterwards. But his key message was like, speak your dreams out loud. Like if you don't say them out loud, how does anybody know to help you? Like again, back to the network, we can wrap with the network. There are all kinds of people who know people who have ideas. Yeah. And if we say them out loud, somebody might be like, I can help you with that.
I run into a person that says, if I want to work with Caesar's Palace, it's like, I've got a client in Vegas. Maybe they can help you.
Yes.
Or if it's like, oh, I know someone that works for the National FFA.
It's not a secret. Like, oh yeah. And I know the National FFA. We've had some conversations. It's not out of reach.
Not too far out there. Yeah.
It's not out of reach. But yeah, that would sort of hit all the boxes of like, I love all of it.
Yeah. Well, we'll have once you do have them as a client, we'll circle back. We'll do another podcast episode and we can discuss it. Last question I got for you. I ask everybody on the show, Mount Rushmore of business advice. So your top 4 pieces of advice for someone that's maybe just starting a business.
Mount Rushmore of advice. Seriously, just be interested in people, no matter what it is. I mean, if you're an introverted accountant, the same thing. Like you're going to have to be interested in people to know how you help them.
Yeah.
What I tell everybody, particularly young people all the time when I mentor them, like do all of the things, like even the thing that seems beneath you. If like you're stuffing envelopes, just do the thing because you don't know whose name you're going to come across on that envelope. And then when you see them later, it'd be like, oh yeah, I see you're one of our clients. Like it might seem beneath you to stuff the envelope. Nothing is beneath you. Just do the thing.
Okay.
Always just do the thing.
So people, do the thing, and two more.
And I believe this for everybody, but particularly for women. If you believe you deserve a seat at the table, don't wait for somebody to give it to you. Just take the chair and sit down.
I like that.
Everybody, men and women alike, are fighting for their space at the table and fighting for their own ideas. Don't expect somebody's going to make time.
Don't let it fall in your lap. You got to go out there and set it in your lap.
Yep. Set it in your lap. And this is one that I'm not good at, in all honesty. But I know that a lot of people are trying to figure out how to do it. Like, establish some boundaries in your life far earlier around like your work and your health and the balance between them. And I haven't been good at that, so I developed 25 years of bad habits where I've put myself last while I put work and business first.
I love it. Where can people find you, Melinda? Where they can find Full Tilt Marketing?
They can go to fulltiltmarketing.net. They can call, they can text. My phone number is always on there. My email is always on there. And because I have no work-life balance, I answer phone, text, phone, email, all hours of the day and night.
Perfect. We'll put all those links in the description below. You guys can check it out. Melinda, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Perfect. Thank you.
That is episode 44 of the Minot Business Podcast. We will see you guys next week for episode 45.